Even though there's no one miracle diet that can reduce cortisol and stress levels right away, there are certain parts that can help reduce inflammation in the body and help control how much cortisol is released. Davis says that this is because there's a link between high levels of cortisol and increased intestinal permeability. In some way or another, all of us have intestinal permeability. Because there are some holes in the digestive tract through which things can go in and out, he elucidates for us. When cortisol levels are high, on the other hand, the level of permeability goes up. When this happens, bacterial breakdown products get into the bloodstream. This causes inflammation, insulin resistance, and more cortisol to be made. This process can be slowed down by a few different kinds of food and other things. Let's talk about top foods that lower cholesterol levels and relieve stress. Here's what they are. Cloves. Davis says that another thing that might thicken the mucus barrier is eugenol, which is an oil that can be found in cloves. He says that this makes it harder for the waste products of bacterial decay to get into the bloodstream. Also in the mix are red pepper, strawberry, kiwi, and citrus fruits. Mode says that these foods, which are all high in vitamin C, can help keep the levels of the stress hormone cortisol steady. Researchers have found that the adrenal glands store a lot of vitamin C. Eating foods that are high in vitamin C can help keep cortisol levels normal and feed and make the adrenal glands healthy. Some of the healthiest foods you can eat are prunes, bananas, sweet potatoes, melons, oranges, spinach, and broccoli. Mode says that too much cortisol can cause the kidney to get rid of potassium. These potassium-rich foods can bring those levels back up and lessen the bad effects of stress and too much cortisol. Green tea. Davis says that there are chetaceans in some green tea that bind to the mucin protein found in mucus in the intestines. It turns the mucus in the digestive tract from semi-gel and semi-liquid, which makes it harder for foreign substances to get into the digestive tract. Also, research that was published in the journal PLOS One found that polyphenolic compounds in green tea can stop enzymes from making cortisol. This can cause cortisol levels to go down. Kimchi and sauerkraut. Lactobacillus reuteri is a probiotic bacteria that is found naturally in a person's digestive system. Davis says, though, that many Americans lose it over time if they take a lot of anti-inflammatory drugs or are being exposed to different kinds of environmental factors. Davis says that one of Lactobacillus reuteri's many effects is that it makes the brain make more oxytocin. This is just one of the many ways this probiotic helps your body. This makes people feel less stressed and lowers their cortisol levels. Lactobacillus reuteri is most likely to be found in fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi. Davis says that these foods contain a large number of helpful microorganisms that can help rebuild the intestinal barrier. He says that you can lower your cortisol levels by getting that microbiome back into shape. There are more ways to deal with stress. Your food does play a big role in how you deal with stress-like symptoms, but that is only one part of the picture. Mode says that the most important way to reduce stress is to work on making daily habits that change how our bodies respond to stress in our environment. With this method, you can reduce the amount of cortisol that is released over time, no matter what's going on. Here are some ideas that might help. 1. First, think about what you want to do. Mode says if you take a moment to think about your thoughts and feelings about a stressful event instead of reacting right away, you'll trigger a calming response or a parasympathetic response instead of using the usual fight or flight response. Taking a moment to look at your thoughts and feelings about something stressful will trigger a parasympathetic response or a calming response. If you can't find ways to relax, you might want to try one of these supplements for stress. Number 2. Meditate. McMahon says that any practice that focuses on being more mindful has a direct effect on lowering cortisol levels and other signs of stress in the body, like a faster heart rate and higher blood pressure. Number 3. Make it a top priority to get enough sleep. The most important thing you can do to reduce stress is to keep the same schedule for when you go to bed and when you wake up every day. Mode says that this will help control the cycle of melatonin and cortisol, which is very important for a person's health as a whole. With the help of these professional tips, you may be able to fall asleep faster and stay asleep all night. Here are some sleep aids that we recommend. The hormone cortisol is supposed to help us be ready for stressful situations by making us better at using the energy we have. This is done by stopping some biological systems from working that aren't needed right away for continued existence. When cortisol is in our bodies, the amount of glucose in our blood increases. This gives us more energy. It will do this by, among other things, breaking down your muscle tissue into amino acids, which can then be turned into blood sugar. This means that having high levels of cortisol all the time will make your muscles get smaller over time. Cortisol is called a catabolic hormone because it breaks down cells. The less muscle you have, the slower your metabolism will be and the more likely you'll be to gain weight. When there's too much glucose in the blood, it is expected to be used right away for energy instead of being stored. Because of this, the hormone cortisol stops the body from making insulin. Insulin lowers the amount of blood sugar in your body by making your muscles and fat take up and store extra sugar. Diabetes type 1 happens when the body stops making insulin. Insulin helps bring down the amount of sugar in the blood. Do you think this is what you feel like when your cortisol levels are always high? If your cortisol levels are always high and you don't have any physical activity to bring your body back to normal, your blood sugar will stay high. Insulin resistance is one of the reasons why people get type 2 diabetes, and cortisol levels that stay high for a long time can be one of the reasons why. Another study found a link between the stress hormone cortisol, type 2 diabetes, and a higher risk of heart disease. There's a link between having high levels of cortisol and having a higher risk of heart disease. There's a link also between having high levels of cortisol and being overweight. If cortisol levels stay high for a long time, your immune system could get weaker and your adrenal glands could get tired. When adrenal fatigue happens, the adrenal glands don't work as well as they can. The signs of this condition are feeling tired all the time for no apparent reason, not wanting to get out of bed, and feeling like you have more energy at night than during the day. Stress can be bad for your mental health as well as your physical health. For example, it can make you far more likely to feel pain and get sick in the long run. Because of this, you really need to know how to deal with stress well if you want to stay healthy overall. If you want to feel better and be able to deal with stress better, you should use natural ways to relieve stress and eat more foods that lower cortisol. Thanks for watching this video. We hope it was helpful. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting information.